Welcome to Epicure Creative. Today we're going to be making XO sauce, which is a really interesting sauce that was invented in Hong Kong in the 1980s. It's kind of a misnomer to call it a sauce because it's more of a compote or a relish type accompaniment. So I'm going to go over the ingredients for this. One of our ingredients is, this is diced speck, and speck is smoked prosciutto. Any smoked cured pork product will work just as well. We also have some small dice of onions and minced garlic and whole shallots, crushed dried chili peppers, and shrimp oil. So the shrimp oil is made just by steeping, kind of like a tea, shrimp shells and heads in oil. I use grapeseed oil for this. Almost completely covered, but not quite. And you just infuse this oil over a couple hours over really low heat. You don't want to see any movement or any bubbling. It's just steeping. You don't want to burn your shells. It's kind of a long, slow extraction. Very easy to do. If you can't get your burner down low enough, what you can do is you can put it in your oven on a really low flame, or maybe just on the pilot light overnight to infuse. The ingredients for making the shrimp oil are in the description below if you want to check that out. There's another option for making shrimp oil as well, and that is, if you go to an Asian grocer, what you can do is you can get whole dried baby shrimp that are shell on, and you can use those to make the same kind of oil if you don't want to use shrimp shells, you don't have shrimp shells and heads on hand yourself. Our first step in making our XO sauce is to, essentially, we're going to fry these sliced shallots in grapeseed oil. So we're shallow frying it, we're not completely submerging them, but we're going to start with oil that is only warm, not hot. And what that is going to do is it's going to allow the shallots to dehydrate, collapse those moisture holding cells in them, and slowly crisp up. And that crispy texture and that nice dark color that we're going to achieve on these shallots are going to contribute a tremendous amount of flavor and umami value to the overall sauce. So this has only been on, the burner has been on for maybe half a minute on medium heat, and so the oil is warm but not super hot yet, which is a good time to add our shallots. And as it increases in heat, over medium-high heat, the moisture will evaporate and it'll slowly crisp up. The next step is to take all of our onions and our garlic and our strained shrimp oil, and we're going to add a generous amount of this shrimp oil here. And we are going to sweat this until the garlic and the onions are nice and soft. So what sweating is, for those of you who don't know, sweating is an overcrowded pan cooking over low to medium heat and not getting any caramelization, in other words, browning. So we want to do that till things are translucent, but even more so till they're really soft. This is just about the stage that we want our pan-fried shallots to be at for our XO sauce. Nice and dark but not burnt. Just before they're done, I add a little bit of salt and stir it vigorously. And now I'm shutting off the heat because it will go from perfect to burnt very quickly. We strained our shallots, our fried shallots, out of the oil. You can see it's a nice dark color. That's exactly what we want, to get them as dark as possible without being burnt. Ideally, we want them nice and crispy too, but if they're soggy, that's okay. They'll still make their flavor contribution. And I'm just breaking them up a little bit to better release some of the oil that they might be holding on to. Now our garlic and onions are appropriately sweated out, really soft in the shrimp oil. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this into a separate bowl to cool down a little bit. And I'm going to add some of our crushed dried chilies now to infuse. And we're going to wait for it to cool down to about room temperature before adding our shallots and our speck. Our speck is our smoked dry cured pork product. The reason why I am not putting all of the ingredients in the hot pot together is because some of the fat will render out of our speck, our smoked pork product. And when pork fat gets cold, it solidifies. So by keeping any of the pork fat from rendering in the hot XO sauce, what's going to happen is the XO sauce is going to stay fluid, and it's not going to congeal in the refrigerator because grapeseed oil, which is what we used for our shrimp oil, is still fluid at cold temperatures. Now that our garlic and onions that were sweated out in the shrimp oil with some chilies is at room temperature, this is a good time to add the rest of our ingredients. When I was sweating out the garlic and onions in the shrimp oil, I was also using periodically seasoning with a little bit of salt. Add a little bit more chilies, and I'm going to add some more of the shrimp oil as well. And you can see what I mean by it being sort of a misnomer to call it a sauce. It's more of like a compote-ish relish or accompaniment than it is a sauce. It's very chunky. And I add a generous amount of oil to it. When you go to put it into a mason jar or whatever that you store it in, if it's submerged in the shrimp oil, this is going to stay good indefinitely. This won't go bad unless you contaminate the container that it's stored in. It should be stored under refrigeration. Thanks for joining Epicure Creative. I hope you enjoyed what we did today. Please press the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much.